Hello, everyone. My name is Axer. Some people call me Croco. I am joined by my co-host, William Smith. Introduce yourself, Bill.
Hey, I'm Bill. I'm some dude who knows these people through the internet.
All right. And now we have the two other goofballs, Heckworth and James McCarthy.
Yeah, I'm James.
Yeah, he's James and I'm Heckworth, your resident autist. How are we doing today?
Right, yeah.
All right.
So we got some things we can talk about. Ignore episode 0 of this podcast, right? That was absolutely.
What are you talking about? Episode 0 was the greatest episode.
Yeah. No, there was no episode 0.
Mr. Brown.
Well, this is going on the other channel. So, okay, the stupid admin shit aside, just get to the meat. Come on.
All right.
So what's the first topic, Billy?
First topic is Heckworth wanted to talk about the ongoing situation with the coronavirus and how it's affecting different facets of life on Earth right now.
Okay, here we go. I'm gonna link the article right now. I look in general. As the coronavirus spreads, Amazon tries to curb mask price gouging. So people have been buying masks by the fucking tons and reselling them to people they know IRL or on eBay to
Thousands of pounds
at exorbitant prices, to the point where, like, because Amazon's running out of stock entirely. So here's the article if you guys want to read it. So
wait, hold on. By the ton.
Yes. Just
by thousands of pounds.
Yes,
Jesus.
Bulk buying generic blue disposable face masks. Okay, here's some stats. The price of these these respirators before the virus was $17 for a pack of 20. Now it's $70 for a pack of 20.
That's like
this is over 4 times the price.
So, that really reminds me of something. If you go on YouTube, there's like this big business culture about upselling. You know what upselling is, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So basically, they buy these cheap, chunky products from. They buy some shit from China, like some really cheap shit, and they upsell it at about like $2 billion or some shit. Not $2 billion. I'm clearly exaggerating there, but they hike the prices up, and apparently they're really smug about it on YouTube. Like, they're the kind of people that, like, hey, don't. It's like, you know, like the generic businessman rhetoric. Like, hey, don't be the guy working on the assembly line or some fucking garbage, some shit that means nothing to anyone. Yeah, it's really been fermenting for a while now.
So, I would argue, though, if you think...
Okay, Bill, the way we're going to couch this, right, is since you're the local ANCAP, is there a moral duty of the governments of these places to make sure that this doesn't happen? Because there's already laws in place, like during hurricanes.
Anti-gouging laws.
Yeah, there's already laws in place during hurricanes when people are rushing to buy supplies like clean water at stores and stuff.
Sure.
There's laws against like the stores like charging the price, because there was one point, I think during Hurricane Katrina, where they were selling a case of water bottles for like $1,000 at this gas station.
And I would make the argument that you have to look at it like this. There is a fundamental difference between, let's say, during a very extreme drought where people were actually dying from lack of water. There's a difference between price gouging in that kind of a situation where the water and the receiving of the water is a literal life or death situation. And a situation where a somewhat preventative mask, which may not even be preventative at all, is selling out just based on the fear of a virus. The virus might not even actually be in your country yet, but you're just fear stalking because you feel that it could be, which may or may not be a smart move. It depends on how this all pans out. If this turns out to be another Ebola, we're all going to be looking at ourselves in 3 months like, wow, weren't we stupid? For the hype. Well, if it turns out to be something else, which it looks like it may be, because according to the official statistics, we're now looking at 85,000 thousands infected. What is it, 3,000 dead, something like that. So
These
we're
numbers
already
might
way
not-
past.
Yeah, these numbers might not be accurate, but that's what they're.
Right, because China is not playing ball really. We know
I
that.
mean, Do you think the
Go ahead.
gooks are gonna really like reveal any information about this?
Well, the thing is too,
No.
it says that the CDC, they said that they do not actually even recommend these masks because the thing
They
is
like
these are
want
just
gas masks.
because no, the thing is they recommend just like for the average person just washing your damn hands is the most effective way of stopping the virus.
Right.
In
I
the
also
US.
feel like this is just kind
But the thing is
scare.
too, what doesn't make sense is like if you're going to buy these masks, you could just get like a really crappy GP5 gas mask on eBay for like $20, and just get
No,
like
no,
and
it's
just
why
get, and just
fucking-
get a cheap filter, like a cheap
Oh.
biological non-asbestos filter.
See, but that's
and just,
kind of
and
the
just
thing.
wear and just wear that every day if there's actually like an active plague in your area. Like just
But
do
the
that
question
instead.
is-
but then the price will get
Should
down
the government
there.
step in? Should the government step in to prevent the redistribution of wealth from the ignorant to the enlightened? So, for instance, if I can sell you a mask that makes you feel better at night, even though the CDC, everybody has said that these little paper masks they put on, it's not effective in keeping the coronavirus.
Yeah. For all
out.
intents and purposes, all these masks are for is just to stop blood splatter during surgery. They're not actually like
So then-
germ resistant.
It's just one of those things. If we can say that somehow selling somebody a mask for $5 when it's really worth $1 because they're panic buying is somehow unethical, we can just
This
as
is
easily
the
say
same
that selling
thing.
somebody what?
Happened in the Black Plague. Plague doctors. They were the ones with the big fucking scary bird masks. They were walking around, and they fucking price gouged the shit out of people with the bubonic plague back in like the 1300s.
Yeah, they were price gouging like the nonsense cures, like this is like unicorn like elixir and shit like that.
I think also those plague masks weren't like the plague masks didn't actually help like
Well,
Smelled good.
it was only like I heard, I'm not sure if this is true, that there was like flowers in there so that they smelled.
okay. The thing about the plague masks,
Okay,
okay,
flush.
I'm kind of like the historian for the audience, but no, the plague masks were full of like really slow burning herbs like fucking oregano and just like lavender, because they believed that the
Could wear
disease
one on
they
mask.
believed that the diseases were spread by bad smells and air rather than germs. So if you just surround your, so if you just hot box a whole bunch of nice smelling things, it'll be fine. But
If you think about
well,
it, you can
technically-
understand how someone would come to that conclusion, because obviously when people are like dying and decaying, there's a bad smell, so people would make the mental connection that like maybe that's
Yeah.
what's
Yeah, it's not like they had like modern science.
Well,
back
the thing is too, like, well, the plague well, if anything, even if the plague, like the plague doctor bird mask, like, even if it didn't technically like stop the plague because of the mask properties, it's still covering your face entirely, and just keep, because it was spread by the lice and like the tick and the fleas and everything. So just wearing like a full protective like leather suit like the plague doctors would help.
Like BDSM.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
But,
dressing like a gimp would work, like unironically.
Here's what
I
we
think
can
the smell
have.
thing has some. I think the smell thing has some water because you know how bad Ugandan smell, dude.
Here's what we kind of have to bounce to, though.
Okay,
and this is the-
yeah, Bill, come down to the point. Is it ethical
What?
for the government to step in if this is happening?
And the answer is, in this instance, no. And here's why I say no. If it were a good, so for instance, you were mentioning the plague doctors sold essentially snake oil, calling it a cure. Obviously, today, that would get you sued for fraud. If I sell you something that I say cures migraines and there's no scientific proof of it curing migraines, you can sue me. And then on the other hand, if it's something that we know is vital to live, that there's a shortage on. So if I'm charging you $1,000 for a 6-pack of water during a drought, that can also get you sued. These masks are in a weird in the middle position because you could make the argument that they are somewhat effective. You can't prove that they're not effective, but at the same time, it's just sort of one of those up in the air things. It's not like a 6-pack of water for $1,000, but it's also not like snake oil. So my answer is let people do this. I'm sure there are a lot of people getting very wealthy selling the masks. I really don't begrudge that because nobody's going broke buying masks either unless they intend to resell it. Because think about it. How many of these things do you actually need to make it through the duration of this disease?
Well, supposedly you're supposed to throw one out every time you're in public. Like, it's disposable.
Bill.
Sure, but at the same time, you... Go ahead.
Well,
Yeah, you said something earlier about the government and like stupid people buy shit because they're stupid, and that the people selling stupid shit are quite brilliant. I think that's really a good point, and I would like to expand on it with the e-girl epidemic. You remember Belle Delphine, their fucking coochie water or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and on the
coochie
whole
water.
thing, like what Bill was saying, I mean, like even though, like, the whole thing is, they're very disposable, but like it is still like $70. That's not gonna make you go broke.
well, the thing is too, like, is it like honestly though, is it so hard to make one of these masks yourself?
Oh, it's not.
I guess
Like,
not.
just get like a piece of paper and just some string, and just make
It'd probably be better.
and, like, yeah, just get a
Joke
piece of
about
paper
a piece of
and
paper,
some rubber
but at the
bands.
same time,
It would be
we
just as
used
effective.
we used to
Be more
wipe down the restaurant I worked at with these like they weren't rags per se, but they were like these microfiber type towel disposable things. It's basically what those masks are made of. So yeah, you get a little bit of elastic in that, and you punch 4 holes in it, and you're good to go. So it is just kind of one of those things.
Yeah,
of,
these masks.
I don't have an issue with people profiting based off of intelligence because, I mean, let's be honest here for a second. People are willing to go out and buy a meal that they could. So, like, they'll spend $15 on a pizza when they could make 5 pizzas at home for that price, eat 1, and sell 4. But they choose not to. They choose to go.
Well,
My point is that the state can't stop people from doing what's convenient, what's popular, and what's stupid because people are inherently flawed.
well, I think the final conclusion that we need to come to is we need to get on this business quick before the
You're not kidding.
before the plague dies down, so we can capitalize on this.
See,
You sponsor.
yeah.
We need to make,
Yeah.
we need to make breath masks, but like the D's Nuts kid.
Let me transfer that into something serious, which is the economic situation. Right now, I'm not in a buy position on the stock market. And just so people know, the listeners, I'm kind of the economics finance nerd.
Bit of a financial criminal. He'll break your kneecaps if you don't pay 200% on his loans.
Oh yeah. You
I don't know what he's
talking about.
I don't know what James is talking about. But to get back on topic here on the
Croco
stock
Mart.
market,
The Dow
I'm
just
really saying this right now.
the Dow just shit its
We
pants.
all like. I think 3 of us sound the same.
no,
Yeah.
you all sound the same. But here's pretty much what I bumped
I see.
into with the Dow. I wouldn't buy right now because I think this thing, you have to think of it like this. Supposedly, the number of viruses is starting to slow down in China. I don't know that I believe that, but that's the official word being put out. But the reason I'm not going to buy right now is because clearly it's starting to spread into Western countries, specifically the United States, obviously in North America, California, and Italy and Europe has now, like, I forget how many cases, 200-300, something like that.
Can we talk about this? The Pope. Yeah, the Pope
Right, go
got
ahead.
it.
Wait, the Pope
He,
got it?
No, I don't think he got it, but he was very sick after.
He got sick after he said supported them.
Uh-oh.
I don't know.
And personally, at any time, if any other Pope was sick, I would be devastated. However, currently I'm fucking livid. Look at this fucking. Yeah, but.
I mean, there's no guarantee that anyone's really. There's no guarantee you're gonna die from it too. That's the whole thing.
Well,
Gee, like
it's
2000?
only, it seems like it's only like a 10, maybe 10-ish% chance if you even get the
Only
virus
if
that
you're
you
super
die.
old. If
Well-
you're super old or a baby.
Well,
you'll
the thing
die.
is too, with most diseases of this sort, like the vast majority of people get better just with basic like
Yeah.
like just with basic care, like have someone make sure you drink water or just like get plenty of rest. Like that was how they like got rid of Ebola for the most part. Was just like
Basically, right.
All they did was just make you
sanitation and healthcare, and then they get better because
from every
the way that they cure Ebola was just make you drink water.
That's how the Jews got rid of the Black Plague.
That's how you don't like.
The Jews never got the Black Plague because they washed their hands.
You just drink water.
Like
right. Just to hit on the whole predictions for, and I want us to all go down the line on this of who thinks what's going to happen. I think it's going to slow down in China. I think you could be looking, I don't want to make a casualty estimate, but I think it's going to be much bigger than what it is right now, but it's going to be that way in the third world. I think that in Western countries, unless it mutates, which we know sometimes diseases do, unless it mutates into something else, for right now, I'm thinking that it kind of hits a brick wall where it's fairly infectious, but the fatality count is going to be much lower in the West than in the East, which I think will freak people out a lot less. If it just becomes essentially a very scary version of the flu in terms of fatality, I think, we'll be able to cope with that and move on.
Well, Bill, I saw like 1 or 2 videos. I don't know how many cases that are happening, but I've seen videos coming out of China of people with the coronavirus, and there's the doctors trying to take them away to quarantine them. And the people with coronavirus just actively sneeze on everyone around them. Just there are some people in China that are just going like hell to the wind and just infecting everyone and everything around them.
And I don't understand it.
There was I saw one video in particular where this lady was in a grocery store, I think, and she was just sneezing and smearing spit on all of the stuff on the shelf.
The man in India who he killed himself because he thought he had corona.
So I mean, what the hell is going on?
That I can't answer. I don't know if that's some kind of a and this is because I really don't.
I want to take others down with me. I don't want to die alone.
Sure, but how bad do you have to? How bad does your society have to be to think I just want to take out all of these people when I die?
I don't. I mean,
that's
China's a very depressing place to be.
That is.
Guys, sorry if you hear that, but there's my nigger neighbors are playing really loud bass music.
No, I can't hear anything.
That
all right, good.
Is the final.
Okay, well, at any rate, there's the other cases of even during the Black Plague, right? One of the things that a lot of different people had different responses to how they dealt with the plague. Some people just locked themselves in their house all day. Some people just did what these people in China are doing and just sneezing on everything. But my favorite part were the people who, during the Black Plague times, who just continued their life as if nothing was going on. Whatever, just go to work, just have fun, just... If I get the plague, I get the plague. Nothing I could really do about it anyway.
In a way, I semi-respect that, honestly. Even though you're risking other people, it's kind of a bit respected. I get this... whatever. What I wanted to say was I think a lot of this, and this is kind of I guess been said over and over. I think this is kind of just people make mountains out of molehills all the time, and this might just be another one of those things where oh no, worst case it'll probably kill a bunch of people, but it won't really be as bad.
Capitalizing on that, I think that there needs to be some kind of term for this phenomena that's happening recently. Because we had SARS, swine flu, and now coronavirus, and Ebola too. What are we going to call these, flash in the pan little epidemics of little...
I think the Chinese flu.
Minor diseases that really get blown out of proportion.
It's kind of, I think, the same thing as apocalypse...
All I know is China needs to let those fucking Jews go because there's been 8 plagues already.
I think it's a similar thing to the whole apocalypse thing. Remember There's Y2K, then like June 6, 2006, 2012.
And DAC 16, 12, 16.
Yeah, the
SARS. When
the
was SARS?
like this one thing on 4chan where people were predicting that it was going to end on September 23rd. I think there's some people who even predicted sometime in 2020 because the numbers align or something.
It's not gonna happen.
Okay, I go on a quick tangent. I fucking hate QAnon. I hate QAnon so much.
Yeah.
I'm indifferent to it, and here's why I'm indifferent to it. Without getting too direct, I do have issue with some of the things that we've found going on in the higher levels of the government in terms of their efficacy. I mean, I would encourage all of our listeners to go online and read the Finder's declassified FBI documents about the club that existed at one point in Virginia, but that's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, that's probably not what we're gonna. Okay, I have another sort of story, sort of plague adjacent story.
How long have we been recording?
We've been recording right now for 20 minutes.
Alright, well, let's go. I'll let you talk for a bit, and then we should probably get to the social section.
Okay. I have.
Yeah, let's start hitting this stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Let's move on.
Oh, lightning round.
You guys
lightning
think
round.
it's going to be the political effect of all of this? Do you think it's going to get bad enough that Trump loses re-election?
Well, I just went
he
to
will.
I just went to a meeting today about like a possible like trip to Japan, and they said that Japan right now is a very good chance of them just closing their borders completely and just returning to like the Keikaku, not Keikaku
no.
shit. That means planned. No. Whatever the isolation period of Japan is, because right now they're totally shutting off their borders, and they're threatening to like close the 2020.
The Sakaku.
Yeah, Seikaku. They're threatening to close the 2020 Olympics in Japan right now just because they were.
This really is fucking plaguing.
Yeah, just to contain the spread possibly, but I think that overall the political situation is what we see. We saw the Dow take a shit. We saw Japan possibly going isolationist. We saw. I don't know how this is really going to affect U.S. politics because this seems like a Eurasian phenomenon. So I don't know.
And that's kind of the interesting question is, and I feel like we should probably talk about the presidential election on a different show because this is pretty packed for content.
Yeah.
We're the king of new content just to appropriate that culture. But no, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out if it gets bad enough for, an incumbent president to lose for like the second time in the past 50 years. Let's talk about Pennsylvania suing Juul. You wanted to talk about that?
Oh yeah, if you want to talk about okay. So let me open up the Inquirer article right here. Okay. Pennsylvania sues Juul, demands a ban on makers' vaping products. E-cigarette maker Juul, backed by Bucks County DA, turning the youth into a generation of addicts. Lawsuits have basically banned Juul and other tobacco-flavored products because the FDA has found that they've been causing a hell of a lot of more problems than originally thought. Oh, by the way, just in case you want to know, Juul is owned by a tobacco company. Like you think vaping was an alternative, but no, it's the most it's the dumbest plot twist of all time. Wow, who would have guessed that the competition was run by the same company?
See, then that kind of begs the question: is do we take the moralistic view of trying to keep people away from stuff that's bad for them, or do we take the Darwinian Machiavellian route and say, okay, if you're stupid enough spend 10% of your paycheck give yourself cancer in 30 years. Isn't that kind of like nature sorting itself out?
I'm a proponent of that theory too.
Okay.
It's kind of like the trolley question.
There's a stat right here.
That's like a
as of this month. As of January, there have been a total of 2,700 people who have been hospitalized because of direct vaping-related incidents, and 60 of them.
Moscow's are finding shitty
And
Chinese vapes off the internet.
And 60 of them, no, not the vape itself, but like the smoke, like the act of vaping on the lungs, not the vape didn't like burn a hole in their pocket.
Well, I know one thing.
And 60 people have died because of this.
I know, but
is gonna raise
because
hell.
buying stupid fucking dumb Chinese vapes off the internet.
So
I think that Enver Hoxha is gonna raise. He's gonna raise hell for
vaping.
vaping thing, because Enver Hoxha does
We
say.
said we-
For the listeners who don't know, which is all of them, Enver Hoxha is a bit of a he's an Albanian communist, and after World War II, he set up a Soviet satellite government in Albania. He's a bit of a running gag in our group of autistic friends.
no, Enver Hoxha has been a running gag for like the last like he's been a big lefty pole gag for a long time.
Yeah,
And
like the Enver Hoxha says it's Jule time. I think that's like some sort of lefty poll meme.
it doesn't matter.
Let me just point out.
This is way off topic. This is way off.
We find ourselves in a weird situation, and this is not just with vaping. This is with cigarettes. This is with overeating. This is with drugs. This is with everything. We, on the one hand, demand autonomy of self, but then on the other hand, we expect free medical treatment, rides to the hospital, accommodations for when we become handicapped from our behaviors. And it's one of those things, the more you have a society that works both ways, the more bankrupt you're going to become economically, because you're supporting people who are not vested in the system and have no reason to behave as though they are.
Well, I think a very poignant quote is Romans 6:23, "The wages of sin is death."
Is a very you can't debate that.
I feel like is there really any point in like legislating against like just these gluttonous activities? Like,
and the reality is, I mean, both right-wing and left-wing politicians in this country have tried for the past 100 years to motivate a certain complacent lower middle class out of the lower middle class and out of poverty, and they've been completely unable to do so because they are complacent. They like where they are. And I have first-hand experience with this. I worked with a bunch of people that worked minimum wage jobs, and I was starting to build off of that and go in a different direction. And they would complain about their paycheck, but they'd spend $200 a week on cigarettes, weed, booze, this, that, the other. I would go to them and say, hey, you want to work with me doing this? Do you want to try and work towards this, whatever it was? And they would always give me the same excuses. I'm busy. I want to go home. I want to play video games. I want to smoke, whatever it was. And so after a while, you start to realize, like, you can't be too unhappy about your paycheck because you don't want to do anything about it, even when you're directly offered an alternative.
well, to put it in the most autistic terms possible, it's like Victoria 2 pops. How like the lower class, this is the lower class when they have luxury goods, like their consciousness just decreases. They're not like, they're content in their sort of.
It's been such a fucking. They've been trying to split us for so long that the middle class is split into two categories: the lower middle class and the upper middle class. And the split's just getting wider and wider as nationalization of the economy continues.
I would kind of make the argument that split is almost as much cultural and behavioral as it is economic.
Oh yeah,
Have you noticed how in rich people's houses they never buy this tacky shit like Mickey Mouse waffle irons, right?
Well, that reminds me. There was one. I don't remember which philosopher said this, but basically it came down to like in this modern world, class is now like the way you behave rather than what you own or like what your paycheck is anymore. Like before, like back in like before the French Revolution and everything like that, you knew someone was like upper class if they were like a learned, like kind of responsible sort of person. They had responsibilities, but there are lower class people who act like dignified, and there are upper class people who act like animals. So
Yeah.
Like in this modern world, it's a class is no longer about wealth; it's about behavior.
I mean, that's why when
See, the
someone's like,
funny thing, I'm sorry, go ahead, James.
yeah, that's why when someone's rude or something, they're considered low class, no matter what their like economic class they belong to. They're still.
It's true. It is very
That's,
true. But
like, that's kind of how we call it now.
one of the things that I would toss out there as well is that if you look at a lot of these super wealthy people that lived what we would consider a very hedonistic, kind of indulgent, decadent lifestyle, a lot of them wind up declaring Chapter 11. Like within, I mean, MC Hammer is a great example. 50 Cent is a great example. I'm pretty sure Charlie Sheen had a ton of money trouble too because they were blowing through so much money that it didn't matter how much they had in the bank. If more is going out than is coming in, you're going to be broke. And so I think that kind of messes with, I think a lot of ideas of what makes somebody wealthy are antiquated and kind of based on a time when wealth was much more static, when it was like, I own a lot of land, therefore I'm a wealthy person. And unless you sold that land, which was pretty uncommon at the time, you were going to be a wealthy person until you died. Unlike today, where there's a lot more fluidity to who has money and who doesn't, because it's no longer based around one commodity. But we should probably move on to the next topic.
Oh yeah.
Like 90% of people who win the lottery, they lose that money within like 5 years.
Yeah, because they don't
Can't really
have
sell
they don't
stock
have
or
they don't
anything
have
you
any
own.
money
You
savings.
can't sell shares of stocks.
Yeah, they don't understand like
quickly,
the limitations.
rapidly
of-
decreases.
Like even if they won like $1 million or like millions of dollars, like they don't understand that that's like, not only do you have to if you want to buy a big house, you also have to maintain it, which costs money as well.
Yeah, the thing is too that $1 million in the grand scheme of things in like one person's lifestyle is not a lot if you're trying to live that lifestyle.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of the situation that a lot of people, because there's this mentality that success is oh so unattainable. But in most Western countries, in the United States anyway, like 1 in 40 people is worth a net worth of $1 million. Like it's not unattainable at all. So I think that's another reason that you've seen kind of the decline of the old style, like Soviet Leninist, storm the building, kill the landlord type of craziness, is because there were people who were essentially at the end of their rope in that particular situation with the war and with the economic depression, that you just don't see that kind of desperation really now. But to get on to the next topic, ticks on mooses. Somebody wanted to talk about the mooses being covered in ticks.
Oh, okay. I don't even remember what purpose I had. Okay. The purpose of this article. I thought it was funny that in the same way how right now humans are dealing with a kind of pseudo-pneumonia plague, up north moose are being infected en masse with thousands of ticks. There's a video of a moose who the entire like surface area of its skin is covered in ticks. Like if you guys ever saw deer and everything like that, like these creatures with ticks and everything is not uncommon. But there's a strange phenomena right now of just massive tick infestations on the wildlife up north, and I don't know why. They're saying that
It's been a thing, even with limes.
yeah, well, whatever's causing this, the moose population is decreasing, but I'm sure that someone's going to say it's because of something about global warming.
I don't know what moose have done for us. Like,
What exactly have moose done for us?
sorry,
I
I'm
don't know.
fucking all of you. But
That's a question for the ages, no, isn't it?
The answer is moose have done nothing for any of us. And I mean, they're really more of a Canadian animal than they are an American animal. So we really shouldn't care about them. They're as irrelevant as the country they're mainly from. Kansas City University versus Chick-fil-A.
What versus Chick-fil-A?
Kansas City University, KCU.
Oh yes, I think they
Owns
wanted to
covered
ban it because I don't even know.
Okay. Resist Chick-fil-A. Okay, I'll read this one. Alright. Kansas University faculty want Chick-fil-A banned from campus for fears of safety and mental well-being. So, the hate against Chick-fil-A is growing as it's viewed by and large as a conservative organization, to the point that people believe that to the point that people believe that this. I mean, there's always been the meme that Chick-fil-A is like the fundamentalist Christians' like fast food slop of choice, but
Yeah.
But now, like, to outright ban a Chick-fil-A because of their like maternity policies, I'm not exactly sure that this is.
Can I just say though, speaking of Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A is the ultimate example of why the whole Tucker Carlson, Nat Pop type of right-wing politics of being anti-market is flawed. Because when you put a group of intelligent, moral people together, I mean, look at the ground that Chick-fil-A has taken from McDonald's, from Burger King, etc. And they didn't do that for their political views. They did that because they make a good chicken sandwich. So I just, there are shining examples of exceptions to the rule of fast food is trash, you know, chain restaurants are trash. There are sort of glaring exceptions, and this is one of them. But no, it is funny that you mentioned the mental and emotional well-being of the staff. That essentially means that a bunch of kids were walking past the restaurant and just screaming their heads off and going crazy, like a bunch of possessed leftist students.
And like, as boomer as it sounds, like it is kind of just this, like, I guess people are now less, I don't really know the word for it, but like they're more prone to outrage and just we'll get upset about the.
Well, I just think it's strange that like the first thing, like to me at least, the first thing I think of when I hear of Chick-fil-A isn't like any kind of food or sandwich, it's just the controversy around them. Like, this is the only reason why anybody even cares or knows about Chick-fil-A in the slightest is because of the controversies around them.
I live in North
I'm
Carolina.
not sure I agree with that. I think it's definitely boosted their notoriety.
I like
they
it long
make a
before
great
the
sandwich.
I mean, is this the example of the best, like, there's no such thing as bad publicity? I mean,
Yes.
I guess in a way, it really depends.
You have to think about it. If you come out and yell at a group of people for doing something that around half the country agrees with, the other half of the country is going to stand up and be like, okay, well, I didn't like that news segment they ran, so I'm eating a Chick-fil-A. I'll show them. And I mean, after every single controversy, after the gay controversy, after all that, it just kept on boosting their business. They're kind of like the Donald Trump of restaurants, where the more the media yells and says, oh my gosh, look at this new thing they've done, like the more power they seem to gain. It's very interesting.
That's quite a title, like the Donald Trump of fried chicken.
Donald Trump of restaurants.
Yeah.
Attacking it only makes it grow stronger.
AFC is Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
No, that's Obama. AFC is Obama. Sorry.
Kind of boring, but like.
Bleep that out. Bleep out Bill saying KFC is Obama.
Sorry.
Okay. I found a really interesting article.
What is Popeyes? Is Popeyes George W. Bush?
Fuck off. I was saying.
Okay, guys. A key ingredient for life has been found within a meteorite. Scientists have found a fragment of a protein within a meteorite, showing that basically there's some sort of not particularly biological, but some sort of it's like a shard of like a piece of protein that they found, and it was inside the rock inside a meteorite. So, what do we make of this?
Personally, what I have to make of it is
start eating meteorites.
Well, we usually forget this, but throughout the entire universe, the table of elements is entirely consistent. So everywhere, there's probably a thing on Earth that has the exact same element composer or something on like fucking Exxon 2949YB across the entire universe.
It's
because elements are consistent.
Well, the thing is, it's called an amino acid, which is the same things that formed the building blocks to be complex proteins, which eventually, in the primordial soup, became the first sort of life forms. So this is basically proof that the sort of amino acids that were on Earth were found in other places. So this is the first. I mean, people will probably shit themselves and say like, "This is why aliens exist," but I'm not.
Okay, but on that topic, though, if you think about it, space is from what I understand, it is something of a vacuum seal type of gravity-free environment, correct?
Almost.
And you have this protein that's at the center of a meteor, right? And the meteor was in space. So if you think about it, this is the best dry, vacuum-sealed, aged protein in human history. If you put this in a fry pan with a little bit of olive oil, the aged taste of that amino acid is going to be better than all the capicola and the roast beef in the world put together. I'm telling you right now, I got to get my hands on this.
I don't want to eat some stuff in space.
Yeah, I don't want to eat.
Let's make the world's spiciest meatball out of this.
I mean, like, let's think about it. If you pour soup into space, is it now vacuum sealed?
Yes.
I don't think it's entirely vacuum
Well, I
sealed.
thought they said that like the airlock to the space station smells like burnt steak because of all the like leaching from the metal inside, the vacuum just sucking out all of the oil and metal from the space station.
Right. That is basically what happens. But to get on to a somewhat different topic, I'm not sure if any of you guys are sports fans, but you may or may not know, they've recently reintroduced the XFL, which is sort of an alternative major football league to the NFL. And in essence, basically, it's something that's supposed to occur. The season goes on after the Super Bowl because I guess these guys realized that these football stadiums were basically sitting empty for most of the year, so why not put them to use? And that's sort of what the XFL has become.
A lot of people don't know this, but the XFL was very active. Even it actually went bankrupt in 2001, and McMahon brought it back.
Here's my deal with it. The football being played is so terrible, and the outcome of the games is so predictable that it's just not that entertaining of a league to watch. It's similar to, if you guys know basketball, it's really hard to go from watching NBA games to watching college games because the college games are just being played on such a lower skill level that it's almost more frustrating and boring than it is entertaining to watch.
Here, I'll post the Wikipedia article in the Discord. This is Trump's football league.
I'll be right back.
It was around in 1982. 1986, and it's kind of a bit of a mirror to the XFL. But unlike it, the XFL actually came back in a degree.
Yeah.
Where it actually can't compete with the NFL.
Yeah, but
anyway,
it says it played from 1983 to 1985, so I feel this is long gone.
Definitely.
I feel like I don't know that it's ever going to not be a thing, just because football is such a popular sport at this point that probably there'll always be a fan base to support it to some extent. But I don't think it's going.
This is going to be like the Bosnia memes of football. It's going to be completely esoteric.
Maybe. Okay, and this is sort of one of those things that's just sort of amusing, as an A space musing, not amusing. How common have the cold and the flu been in your respective areas the past?
Not very. There has been a few, not cold, but a few stomach bugs recently.
No, it's been for context, I'm in Florida. It's been really bad down here. That flu that gets so bad it locks up your throat where you can't talk. I've known people who have gotten that.
All right, I'm back.
Because That's because you basically live in Africa.
Yeah.
Bill, you basically live in Africa.
Heckworth, we're talking about how common is the flu or the cold been where you live. I live in Florida, and it's been like bad this year.
In North Carolina, where I live,
I haven't
it's been
particularly
as
noticed.
bad.
I haven't really noticed.
Yeah. Same.
This is one of the things, though. I feel like my small town is weird because people still have that push through it mentality. Like they'll still go to work or go out when they're sick, so it probably makes it much worse instead of being weaklings about it and sharing themselves in like they should.
I'd say also about back to the corona thing, which we're long over. I think also the masks, since it was in China, may also partially be like a cultural thing.
And the coronavirus is the
Because,
forced meme now. It's the
Like
forced
before
meme.
the coronavirus, they would always wear like these masks whenever they were sick. So if they coughed, it would only it wouldn't go anywhere.
Okay.
And that's actually probably a really likely thing. But on that topic, I just want to quickly point out, since you brought up history and culture in China, China has a very long history of essentially starting plagues.
Yeah, I was just about to say that like the Black Plague originated from
East Asia.
Yeah, somewhere from the Orient of just like fleas.
The Orient.
Oh, and what has happened is it typically would start there and then spread through India, the Middle East, and eventually into Europe if it made it that far. But a lot of plagues didn't go that far north because of the temperature differences.
Yeah, just there's just large untold numbers of plagues have happened because they spawned in China.
Yes, and I think that has to do
SARS,
with the
bird
levels
flu,
of
swine flu,
population
corona.
and the levels of population and just
You
the
heard-
lack of general cleanliness.
Have you heard that how many people malaria has killed?
Yeah,
Overall,
isn't it like
history?
isn't like a third of all people who've ever lived
It's
died of
like a
malaria?
half of all people.
Oh, it's worse.
It's almost as deadly as communism. But
Oh.
to move
Oh,
on,
Yeah,
to
you're right. You're right. Communism killed about 1 billion people last time I checked.
About 2 trillion people.
Okay,
Did you
fair
know
enough.
Hitler was an was
It
communist?
was. Listen, smallpox does give communism a run for its money. It's close. Krakow, you wanted to have a question and story time. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let me get my show notes up. Give me a second, guys. You can talk about autistic shit while I get
Okay.
it up.
Supreme.
Okay. So I'm gonna. Somebody was going to bring up the term. He's not present, so whoever wants to talk about that can talk as need be.
Wait.
The what?
Okay, I got my show notes.
Yeah, you cut out.
It's Krakow question time. The segment. That's the segment intro.
Okay.
What's the weirdest dream you've ever had?
Probably running down a hallway, and the hallway just kept repeating each time, except for there's a door on the side, and there's a room, and it was a flat screen TV, and it was just playing different episodes of Invader Zim on the TV, and I thought, like, why is it doing that? And it,
What year is this?
that was probably my weirdest.
What year is this dream?
I'd say, my weirdest is like almost disturbing. So like I remember I was like, I don't know what it was, but basically like I was talking with this kid, and for some reason we were sleeping outside, and like he was like talking about the weirdest things. Like he was talking about how when he dies, he wants to get buried and not cremated, and then like he starts talking about how his dad's a terrorist, and then like and his dad reenacted 9/11.
Okay, that reminds me, Okay, my actual weirdest dream was probably a dream I was in some kind of, like, Irish pub somewhere, and this, like, really skinny-looking, like, Kyle-looking guy with a baseball hat walks up to me, and every time he opens his mouth to talk, it's an ear-shattering, like TV static sound, like, really fucking loud. And like I was just trying to talk to him like a normal conversation every couple of minutes or so. He just opened his mouth and just ear-shattering static noise, and I just leave. I just finish my drink and leave.
He'd finish your drink. Okay, weirdest dream I ever had was this one's gonna fuck you up. When I was 6 or 7, I had a dream where I was sitting alone at my dinner table, and when I lived in New Jersey, there was a door leading right outside to the patio porch, and usually there would be like a bunch of stars in the sky. But in the stream, it was just completely pitch black out, like just completely dark. And I was eating dinner table at the dinner table alone, right? Just poking in food, and slowly, the SpongeBob statue slides in the frame into the door frame, and it makes this like weird like stone noise, like you know what I mean, like stone
Yeah,
sliding.
yeah.
Stone crumbling noise.
Yeah. And SpongeBob doesn't have pupils, right? And then suddenly I'm taken aback as I am taken into this world. The sky looks like intestines, and the ground is completely red. SpongeBob is speaking to me in some weird tongue. Like, I think he's like quoting novels I was reading in like elementary school. Just like quoting random shit at me. And the dream ended with me being crushed by this Vishnu-looking SpongeBob. He crushed me with his palms, and I was turned into oil, and I woke up.
Okay, Bill, what was your weirdest dream? Have any weird dreams?
Bill?
I had a dream once that some state police arrested me on false charges. It was a really weird chain of events. My phone got turned off. They froze my bank account. 3 of my friends got arrested in the same day, and then I got arrested.
Are you sure this is a dream?
Yes. And the charges did eventually get dropped, so I am not a felon in the dream world.
Okay, next
Next
question.
topic.
Okay.
Next question, Parker.
Okay.
The Turkey-Syria conflict.
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
Syria.
There was an airstrike between Turkey and Syria right now, where I think. Which one?
Ottomans
think
versus Assyrians.
Turkey has declared Totalenkrieg, right?
Yeah, so Ottomans versus Assyrians. How's this gonna?
Turkey's declared like a Totalenkrieg, right?
Not particularly. There was a.
I think Aragon, whatever. How you fucking say it?
Found it. 22 Turkish soldiers.
Yeah, what is
killed.
Aragon? It's fucking Turkey's prime minister's name. Sounds like a fucking Legend of Zelda, fucking creature name.
Okay, 33 Turkish soldiers killed in an airstrike. Erdogan chairs emergency meeting as Turkey suffers the single worst day of casualties since Idlib. Turkey retaliated against Syrian government. Essentially, there's a border skirmish between Turkey and Syria right now, and
How's phone call? Also, fuck with that.
Turkish police border guard.
I'll just be really frank. It's way more than a border skirmish at this point. Turkey has effectively annexed parts of northern Syria, or attempted to anyway.
Well, the thing is too is this kind of leads all the way back to World War II, where there was where France
Antioch.
where essentially France sold different like there were which way was it? Did France sell?
France, I think Turkey.
You're referencing
French for Hittite.
No. There was another thing. There was another part of Sykes-Picot. It was like Sykes-Picot 2, where France and Turkey sold there was a sort of like mixed matching of different border areas between the two, and they couldn't really figure out where to actually draw the line. So I think.
Well, and here's essentially what's
they both have claim over the same area. Hold on. Yeah.
French in the Sykes-Picot Agreement, they also carved up some of modern-day Kurdistan and Circassia into Syria.
It's pretty much how I would describe
I
the
remember.
situation.
Yeah, here it is. France gave a piece of Syria to Turkey. The very northern part of Syria, the very, very, very northern Hittite. The very northwest part of Syria was annexed by Turkey a long time during World War II, and it's just been. And Syria has it back.
The funny thing I found out is apparently northern Palestine was also controlled by the Russians at one point?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but
Oh.
at any
I'll
rate,
send this map in the Discord server.
yeah, at any rate, there is. I mean, this is just kind of par for the course, really, of just Turkey and Turkey just kind of.
Let me just
Fucking carving up
if
shit.
I
Just carving
may
up shit.
nail down into
It's been
sort of
happening
the-
since Rome, dude. It's been happening since Rome. It's not
Right,
going to stop
but-
anytime soon.
talking about the specifics of sort of how this is going to play out, in my humble opinion. First thing just to note about Turkey is that it's probably even worse off than Syria, in that even though they have they don't have the Sunni Shia split that they have in Syria and Iraq, they have 10 million different ethnicities on the Anatolian
Circassians,
Peninsula.
the Abkhazians, the Kurdistanis, the Anatolians, the
Greeks,
Assyrians, Armenians. Yeah.
Arabs, etc. So as a result of this, the reason that they're so violent towards the Kurds historically has been that they're afraid that the Kurds, which are the largest subgroup of people in Anatolia and are Turks, exactly, they'll be a catalyst for a series of independence movements throughout Anatolia.
Well, the thing is,
and that would, of course, lose Turkey all of its
well, the
money,
thing
but
is, for the
not
longest
money,
time,
power.
well, the thing is, for the longest time, the Kurds haven't ever really been an issue for Turkey, because they haven't really had like a national, like a racial consciousness, I guess. Like for the longest time, the Kurds were just like citizens of like the Ottoman Empire and like the Turkish Republic. But later on, it like
I like the gypsies of Turkey.
Developed into something else.
well, the thing is, like, isn't like a quarter of
No, 'cause
Turkey's
gypsies
population?
are, like-
A quarter of Turkey's population is Kurdish, I believe.
I don't know if
Well,
it's
I'll
a
send
quarter,
I'll send a
I would be willing to say that probably a solid at least 25-30% of the people have some kind of identity other than Sunni Muslim Turkish.
Yeah, the thing is too.
I will send a.
When Turkey became a republic, even during the later days of the Ottoman Empire, they've been specifically trying to address this problem, because it's called Turkification, I guess.
Genocide.
Yeah, where basically is
Yeah,
either,
I sent a map in Discord. Look at all this fucking.
to the different to the different if they couldn't like expatriate them, like there was a treaty between Turkey and Greece, I think, in the early 1900s, where they had like a population exchange, where it's just like Turkey gives all the Pontic Greeks back to Greece, and
In Izmir and all that.
yeah, in Izmir and Greece gives all its Turks back. It's just so there's no more like ethnic conflict. But
Or ethnic funnies.
But the thing is, like, if there's no easy place for them to go back to, that's where the issues arise.
They can just go. They can
Yes,
just-
Kurdistan isn't the real place as of right now.
I mean,
And to be fair to the Kurds,
I
they
don't know if it
are
ever
the
was,
largest
it never will be, but
they're the largest self-defined ethnic group on Earth, without their own country. The next largest ethnic groups all have some kind of a nation state.
The gypsies.
well, gypsies are just strange. Don't.
gypsies are.
Do you
never
see
really-
that gypsies are almost more of a culture than they are a ethnic group?
I mean,
Honestly, yeah.
I mean, there's gypsies from Ireland to India, so I'm
Right,
not
right,
sure like
yeah.
how you.
Yeah,
All of them are brown. For some
so there's
reason.
not really a homeland. Gypsies.
There's the Kurd.
Well, they've never.
Kurd
Well,
map.
well, by definition, they've never had a homeland except like.
Think
in-
the
in-
Kurds now
except
have
India,
a,
like
you know,
2,000 years ago. Like they've been
Yeah.
moving since. Like they like.
I'll tell you why I think the Kurds don't have a single ethno state, right? ethnic state. I think it's because they're split up into like thousands of exclaves all over the Middle East, and it's really hard to unify that when they haven't even had a national or ethnic identity since like the fucking tail end of the 1990s.
Well,
I would
So,
make the
like,
argument, though,
well,
that it's almost the
yeah.
persecution that has made their ethnic identity, in that they've been beaten up for so long by Iran, by Turkey, by Syria, by Iraq, that their ethnic identity is now defending against these people, pretty much.
Jews.
Similar to like a lot of Yugoslavian countries, like their entire identity is entirely wrapped
If
up
you ever go on, like,
being
YouTube
ancient
videos,
Bosnian or whatever.
For God's sake, don't start on like Balkan posting where it's like
if you
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on
yeah.
some
the entire
YouTube
server.
videos,
Yeah.
like,
Like,
if you go on some YouTube videos and look in the comments, you can find like traditional like war songs, like those kind of YouTube videos. If you go on those and look in the comments, there's just there'll be like a billion Balkanites screaming at each other about how their country is better than
Yeah, but
yeah,
like,
like the
funny enough,
entire like the entire like consciousness of
I've
Serbia.
never really seen like it seems to mostly be like Albanians, Serbians, and Bosnians.
I think Serbians might be the most racist ethnicity on the planet.
Like I rarely ever see it from a Croatian or a Slovene. Or...
Well, it's
Croatians seem to have a beef with Italy
Slovenes are
over some
femboys.
kind of they had some sort of a border dispute back during like World War I or World War II with Italy, where some Croatian town got leveled and everybody got
during World War II, Italy owned a like Croatian area called Zara, but it was
Zara. Yeah, cause I don't know why, because
there was a lot of Italians there, but it was like
wasn't even
far
in the
more.
treaty.
So what you're saying is they had high crime rates.
Yes.
How do you?
But anyway,
how do you guys
just
agree with this list I made?
Just racist ethnicity.
wow.
You want to read it?
No, that would probably be accurate. I would say.
Honestly, yeah. This,
you read it.
Yeah.
To bounce
I'll read it.
into predictions here, what do you guys think comes of the whole conflict between Turkey, Syria, and Russia?
Probably nothing, because there's no way for them to really ever accomplish their
There's
goals.
gonna be anything.
Do you guys
In that
think that
case-
the Muslim Arabs in Syria will side with the Turks over Bashar? Because if so, that's an entirely different game.
Well, the thing is,
I think
none of
Turkey
these
will side
countries-
more with the United States.
Well, the thing is, like, this whole dialectic can never change because none of these countries can ever actually like defeat the other one. Like, there's like even if no other
Agreement has made it so they are all equally shit.
Well, the thing is that there's no like way. Okay, so assuming Turkey and Syria go to war, right, and no one really interferes. Like, even if Turkey wins and like they march into Damascus and they just take over the entire country, there's really no way for them to ever actually annex Syria. They will never actually do it. It'll just be regime changes, which has been the theme.
It's been the same. Yeah, it's been the same thing since the ancient Egyptians and the Akkadians.
Like, it's been the same thing since like the end of World War II. How wars don't end in like land transfer anymore. It just ends in regime change.
That's true. I would agree with that. But then you also have to think of it like this. Russia has a vested interest in keeping their only Mediterranean seaport open. So it's kind of one of those things. I think Turkey versus Syria, America turns a blind eye more or less. I think Turkey wins. But I think if it's Turkey and Syria versus Turkey and Syria and Russia and Iran, then it's a different ballgame.
Well,
I think Turkey takes
well,
it.
did you ever see that Binkov video about like if Russia and Turkey fought? Where
Remind me.
okay, well, essentially it would just be a stalemate because unless Russia just actively just ignores the
mountain ranges.
Unless Russia just actively ignores and invades Georgia and Armenia, which would put them into Turkey's camp, that would just boost Turkey really, and they could just. There's basically no way for Russia to ever win against Turkey.
That's why they're slowly annexing Georgia with Ossetia, Abkhazia.
And that's why they're slowly just eating away Georgia. But
their entire
I think
strategy
that's
is
why-
focused toward the Sea of Azov, Caspian, and Black, because Crimea, especially, is a very important warm water port to the Ruskies, and I can see why they would want it, especially with its strategic position to Turkey.
Well, the thing is, too, Georgia has a lot of...
Turkey has defined itself as the enemy of Russia since fucking World War I in the NATO crisis.
Not just that. Turkey and Russia have... Okay, I saw a list of like most wars fought between two countries. Number 1 on the list was Denmark and Sweden. Number 2 on the list was Russia and Turkey. Throughout history, have been in the most separate wars with each other throughout history.
They're sort of geographical rivals.
Yeah, they're like eternal rivals. That
I'm not sure
one
that
can
Russia
never
could
really
fight
defeat
on-
the other, though.
I'm not sure that Russia can touch Turkey unless Turkey is somehow voted out of NATO.
Well, the thing
because
is,
obviously,
Yeah, exactly.
Well, the thing is too.
It might
Imagine.
be with Erdogan's more conservative policies. He might be Europe might try to distance himself from the Middle East entirely, especially Turkey with all the policies against the Armenian genocide and all that shit.
Well, the thing is
Like,
too is that Turkey, by definition, since World War I, has just been like it's in this weird like fourth position limbo zone where it doesn't fit in anywhere else on the planet. It doesn't fit in any sort of faction.
It used to just be a part of Greece. It just used to be like further.
It does. Yeah, well, during World War I, like it haphazardly joined the Central Powers. Then it had to fight for its own independence against the Entente and won.
Literally just pushed away everything.
And
Yeah,
Bill,
yeah.
going-
Then it
going
had
back on-
it had to fight the Entente once. Then it had to fight the Entente twice in its independence war. Then it had to fight Greece, and then it just barely weathered through World War II. So there was
Yeah, the German-Turkish friendship treaty.
yeah. Just the thing is, like Turkey has just been this strange anomaly that we're just.
I think what's happened is the
it's
Turks, once they
and
conquered
and going back on like
once
the
they
whole-
formed the construct from the Byzantium, they've pushed every other person away, every other empire away, and instead they constructed new empires. And with this, they've entirely just isolated themselves from everyone, especially with the blockading of the Suez, which, this set the catalyst for discovering North America entirely. Castile, I think? Castile.
Yeah, Castile and Portugal, like by Turkey's like isolationism, we discovered America.
But going back on the whole, like,
Turkey.
this is a bit unrelated, but it's semi-related. Going back on the whole thing about, geographical issues and how Denmark and Sweden and Russia and Turkey have fought each other a lot. It's kind of this whole thing that I think goes back to tribal days. Like you fight the neighboring tribe, kind of, and then like the people that neighbor that tribe but don't neighbor you end up becoming allies with.
Right, no, that's accurate. But on a final prediction note, here's how I see this playing out. Minor land skirmishes along the Turkish and Syrian border. I don't think it'll escalate too far past that. I think the Kurds are going to take the majority of the beating. But just to move on to one of the final topics here before we wrap the show up, if I can find it, there it is. And this is a general question I want to ask everybody, and then I'll give my opinion. Let's try and keep this sort of semi-concise. You'll notice that of all of these sort of ideological factions, all the political factions in the Western world, the past, let's say, 50 years up till today, why are there so many, statistically, why are there so many informants on the far right?
You mean
Why
like
are there so many?
CIA?
As in like an agent that gets put in. I'm talking about somebody who was of that ideology, but essentially chose to cooperate with the government. Why is that such a common recurring trend on the right?
I think it's like, why do they cooperate with the government? Or
Why
why the
is it
government
so
chooses them?
excessive on like the hard right?
I think I have a good
The
answer.
hard right has been the most, I don't necessarily agree with this. The far right has been, in the CIA's eyes and the FBI's eyes, the most dangerous threat to them in the past few decades.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Is back in like the 50s and 60s, it was the far left that were like infiltrated all the damn time. Like, it wasn't it. I think I saw one statistic where it was like worse than like the Klan or something, where like where a good like over 2/3 of the American Communist Party during the 50s and 60s were just informants. Like,
Yeah, and
Sure, but when I'm talking
another
about
thing was like back in the
informants-
'60s, they were kind of like back then they were like the whole big proponents of free speech. They would always try and use like.
well, the thing is, I think it's because it's the only actual. I think the government just automatically will just respond to whatever is the most like threatening to the status quo.
Yeah,
Sure, but
exactly.
you have to- what I'm talking about when I say this is think about how few communists, how few black power types, how few of these type of people relative to their overall numbers have turned state's evidence or have cooperated or have leaked information compared to the right. Why is that number so much higher among the hard right?
Well, I think it's more like out of principle, like
Because
the far
the hard left
like the
no
far left.
longer poses any threat to the U.S. government, and I would say the hard left is actually an appendage of the U.S. government. Not entirely, but there's definitely some elements of it that make it a
I think it is
appendage.
now. Like back in the 50s, as they said, it was different. But at this point, yeah, like we've seen documented ties between Antifa and local police departments, basically.
Soros,
Um, yeah.
And it is kind of like the status quo, I'd say. Like, essentially, and this has been said before, but it's almost like they were given sort of this, like they basically get every social like issue they want handed to them, basically, and like as a result, they don't truly, because they used to be like big on, I guess, the worker or whatnot, but now that's not really the case.
Well, I think it's more just that, like, by definition, the left like stands opposed to like cooperating with the government, where on the other side, like being in support of the United States government, like a patriot and everything like that, is by definition like a sort of right wing ideal.
See, though, and now I'm going to give my opinion, but there you go. To me, I think that that's the defining link, is that if we're being honest with ourselves, and I'm not going to, at least for this show, because it would make it another half hour, I'm not going to say whether it's a positive or a negative thing, but I don't think anybody can deny that there are serious sort of semi-conscious impulses on the right to be, I hate to say obedient, but to an extent obedient.
Yeah.
Like when you see people like at a right-wing demonstration getting like batoned by a police officer and they're holding up a back the blue flag, it's kind of like, this is just some weird slave mentality type of.
Yeah, I think it's just that, like, they can't, like, it's hard to get rid of like being a patriot for your country while still wanting to change it from the outside when the country itself sees you as like a cancer.
I think America is the greatest country on earth, but
Like,
I think the government is the worst on the earth.
Like, I think it's just like the being. It's that sort of boomer mentality of believing that like you believe in American exceptionalism while still disagreeing with America. Like you ever notice how like if Americans will complain all the damn time about America, like every
Fuck you! You live in Pennsylvania,
yeah,
dude.
but
Stop
yeah, but
being like the
everything.
European.
Yeah, no,
And then,
I'm
then
a
the moment
European.
the European says the same thing.
Yeah, like an American can like complain to like till the cows come home about how America sucks, but if anyone else complains about it, they instantly become a patriot again.
I think that's also kind of in the like only I can make fun of myself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Roll through that too.
Like I can make fun of
But I
my
think-
family, but if you make fun of my family, then you're stepping over the line.
And I think
James, I think
actually, James, because that transfers perfectly into my last thought of the day, and then I think we should probably wrap it up just for time purposes. Is the whole, and you see this debated ad nauseum on every political chat, every philosophical chat in the world, is the whole individualist versus collectivist dichotomy of people saying I'm an individualist or I'm a collectivist. And
Fucking 44 focus trees, fucking.
It's a whole
well, here's my issue with that dichotomy is that obviously as long as there's more than one individual in contact with another individual, we're not going to exclusively be individuals. There's going to be group identity, there's going to be group influence. That's inevitable. But then on the flip side, groups can't exist without individuals. So you're kind of left in this interesting area where you say, can anybody be exclusively an individualist or exclusively a collectivist? Aren't the two kind of symbiotic?
Well, I just think that like unless you just go full Sterner egoist and just say like I only exist for myself, you're like it's impossible to ever like distance yourself from either. I think
Exactly.
I think that these are just kind of pointless abstractions of just like like, it's impossible for anyone to be either. It's impossible for anyone to be a full collectivist or anyone to be a full individualist.
Think
Yeah,
I'm
right.
a
I
collectivist.
know this phrase is mean
Marcus,
to hell,
I
but it
hate-
is kind of like a false dichotomy.
I'm a collectivist anarchist. Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe.
See, that's where I kind of have an issue with a lot of people on the right specifically. And this is every philosophical part of the show is going to be me bashing our own side. I'm sorry, it's what I do now.
Yeah.
My issue with this specific behavior is that it leads people into these kind of mental loops in which they say, I believe in a government that does what's good for the people. Okay, you're talking about 330 million people. They're going to have differing interests, differing views. You can't please everybody. What if you pass a law that says milk has to be pasteurized to a certain amount or percent, however it works? That's going to be good for some people and bad for others. So as a result, it kind of is one of those things of you're always going to have a series of groups within an overall group angling to get a higher level of group power. Go ahead.
I think
That's why I think socialism works in these Scandinavian countries because they're so small.
Oh, that Bill, that reminds me. I think it's a Winston Churchill quote, where I might misquote it a little bit, but it's the same point, where he said, "Don't run for public office if you can't handle like 10,000 people dying by your hands."
Yeah.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's kind of well, first of all, that's why I definitely lean towards more of like a localized system of government instead of these, 100 million people within one country. And then second off, it's why I kind of usually when people say I want a government that does what's best for the people, they have some sort of ideal type of person or group of people within mind when they say that, of what they think everybody should essentially be pushed towards being, which may be good or may be bad, just depending on what that ideal is. But I think it's good for people on the right to kind of be honest with themselves and be like, when I say the will of the people, I really kind of mean like the people that I think are ideal, whether that's farmer Christians or businessmen or whoever I see as ideal. That's essentially what that means, whether it's conscious or not.
Yeah, by people they just mean their own tribe, really.
Right, exactly.
Bingo boingo.
Well, I think that's a good ending point. So
Okay, let's close this out, baby. And that's been our show. My name's Kraka, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of RWU3 podcast. It's been a good time making it. And that's it. Goodbye.